Alright guys, welcome back to Schmattz Outdoors. This is part 3 of my Raccoon fur handling series. This is going to be boarding and trimming and pinning on a raccoon. I use all solid boards. I don't use wire stretchers at all for raccoons. I have 2 different sizes of boards. The one I'm going to show you today is the narrow pattern from NAFA. I also use their wide pattern from NAFA. I'm doing a smaller raccoon here, so we're going to put him on a narrow board. We'll just give you a little bit quick rundown of what I got. So what I have is my board. Maybe I wonder if I get it out of the sun if you could see him a little better. So what I do is I actually have all the links marked on there. I don't have written in between what are which I don't even care which are which. I just, if I'm close to a line, I just want to make sure I try and get it at least past the line. And I write on my boards whether they're a narrow or wide one. That just helps me when I'm going to grab a board. I try to flesh a bunch of raccoons all at once. I'll figure out how many I want on each board, and then I kind of sort them, separate them out. So I know when I'm grabbing a board, I'm grabbing a narrow board for a small raccoon or a wide board for a big raccoon. All right, so we got my board. I got my raccoon here. He's all fleshed, looks real nice. He's not the biggest raccoon in the world. He's not gonna make me $1 million by any means, but we'll get him. What I have is I just use the aluminum stick pins and I just dump a handful into the cap of that jar. And the jar just helps kind of keep them organized. Again, I'm using just shop towels. I'm using Semperforce latex gloves to keep my hands clean. And I'll need my knife and a paper towel. And then a belly board. Make sure you get the belly board on there. All right, so we're gonna set you up here. If I can, set you up. And we're going to get started here. So I only have my lines on one side of my board. I don't have anything marked on the other side. So the back of my raccoon has to be on this side of the board. Okay. All right, so what I do here, I'm taking my raccoon here and I kind of hold him by the neck. You can see the base of it kind of opens up. And since this is the back of my board, I'm holding the belly side out like that and then just kind of draping it over my board and just letting him slide down, making sure that my legs and stuff don't get caught on the end of my board here. And then I'm going to slide him all the way down to his nose. See how the nose kind of pulls over nice? This is a sheet of 3/8 plywood. Some guys say not to use plywood. I've had very good luck with these. The only thing, the pins don't push in super easy. So once in a while I use a hammer just to tack them in. So I just got the top lip and everything pulled down nice and tight. I actually usually grab the legs, just snug them down. Now I'm going to grab the back legs and just kind of snug them down. And I'm just kind of using my hands and I'm just kind of sliding it down just to kind of make sure it's all nice and level. All right, so we're going to start on the back here. Grab my quick pins. All right, so when I was skinning this guy, I cut the money cut flaps. And see right here, there's a corner. And right here there's a corner. Essentially those would be folded up like this on that raccoon when the raccoon's alive. By cutting the way I cut that, like right by the genitals, basically that ends up being the width of my board. You can see how that's perfect width there, perfect width there. You can also see right here's a stretching line, right here's a stretching line. So just that raccoon sitting there, my line was about right here. So I don't have to pull this raccoon down. I don't, if he was like right, like that, I would probably try to pull him down so he's by. but otherwise there's no way I'm going to pull him 2 inches to make him, you know, that big. This is a younger year raccoon, so this line is 6'5", 2XL raccoon. So I just run my hand down the pelt just to make sure he's pulled all the way down. Then I take a quick pin and I poke it right into that point, and then I poke that into the side of my board. And we're doing that on this side too. So I just poke it through the pelt and then poke it into the side. Okay. Now, basically you can see that's nice and straight. I'm going to pin it exactly just how it lays there. I'm probably going to put, so I don't need to go right in the corner. I usually try to go back, you know, 1/2 inch maybe from that corner. We'll pin that guy. And we'll probably only put 2 on this guy because it's not a very big raccoon. So there's 2 on that side. If I was real close to my line and worried about, like, if this dries and it arcs up a little bit, they'll actually dock you a size if that is up past the line. So I want to make sure that that stays tight, but this coon's nice and loose on my board. And I'm probably most of an inch past my line, honestly, where I'm pinning him. So we just push one in there. So I kind of, what I do is I actually just kind of poke in till I poke through the pelt and then pull down just a little bit. So I just poke through. I see how I got the pelt kind of stuck to my pin. Then I pull down just a little and then push my pin in. Okay, for the tail here, we're actually going to stand up. Once I get that far, I just lay my stretcher on my table here. That pin come out. Usually if you kind of push and twist, they go in a little bit. So I don't really care. I don't need to pull this way down tight like that. You can see how much that moves this. I actually want to leave as much hide up here to make that as thick as I can. We're gonna quick grab here. A tapping device. That one doesn't want to stay in there, so we're just gonna give it a little tap. All right, so there is, usually I end up with these 2 kind of little ears on my tail. Just that's how I end up cutting around the tail. I always get that. So I do try to usually pin that, but like I said, I push that up, pushing it towards the body, because there's no reason that I gotta pull that like super tight. You know, you don't get paid for the tail being perfect, so. All right, so now all I'm going to do is I'm going to do 2 pins, 2 pins, 2 pins, 2 pins. So I just kind of hold it open. I go usually like every 1.5 inches or so. It kind of depends on how the hide is laying. You know, like here you can see how the tail curls. You got to put them a little closer together to keep that open. Because if I left that like that, it would actually rot and the hair would all fall out. It won't dry properly in there, so. Again, I just kind of use my finger, hold it open. I'm pushing it a little bit back this way so it keeps it a little more lax on the body. Oh, that one didn't want to stay in either. Some of my pins are kind of beat up too, so they don't always stick in real good either. And actually, honestly, with any board I use, I have all kinds of different boards I've used in the past. I usually do this on every one, because then I don't have to push them with my fingers. You know, after a while your fingers get sore. So you can see like there, I don't know if you can see that little kink in there. Let's see if I can get so you can see that little kink on the end. Right there, you might be able to see that little kink. That's why some of these pins don't go in the best. I don't get too worried about it. And again, these are a little bit closer than they are up here. And then right at the end of the tail, I'll put 1 on each side of the tail here. And because this, see how that wants to kind of curl up in the middle, I actually will add another one right in between these 2. So these are only maybe 1 inch apart. So these are only maybe 1 inch, 1.25 inches, and these are about 1.5 inches. All right, so this whole side of my raccoon is done. So what I typically do is I actually hang them off the end of my table just like that, so you don't knock your pins out, and then just pull my legs around. So this is the actual leg. Right here would have been the ankle. So I'm grabbing a pin here. I'm going on the closest side to, or closest to the edge of my board. I want to get so you can see that. Let's see here. So I'm just pinning right into the corner of that, and then I pulled basically straight down this way at me, straight down. Push this side in, and then do the same thing on the other side here. That one didn't want to stick, so we'll tap it in. Okay, and now on these legs, you could pin them way up here, right on the corner of the leg, but I want to trim out an inspection area in here. So I usually will leave about an inch of that, and then I kind of pulling in and down at the same time there. And we'll do the same thing on this side here. About an inch down, pull over and down. See, and by doing that, you can kind of see how it, oops. Seeing that happens, it bends your pin over. Just grab me another one. You see how nice and close those get to the middle? It pulled this all nice and flat. And now we got this little flap in the middle here. And then we got the lower jaw, we got the two front legs, and we got the inspection area here. So I'm just gonna set it now that I'm not pushing. It's key to have a super sharp knife here. The sharper it is, the better this works. So I'm gonna start just above my pin. I'm gonna cut off about an inch. I wanna leave like more than an inch on the edge. I'm gonna come just above this lowest set of nipples, and then come back, leave about an inch or inch and a half maybe even here, and then come back around right above that pin. On a male, the penis hole will be right here. I basically go just above that penis hole, and just above, there's two nipples on a male too right there, so I go just above those. So how I do that, I'm pulling tight against this pin, and I'm gonna start my knife, and I kind of just saw just a little bit to get it going, and then I'm pulling it pretty tight with my hand, and I'm just slowly slicing up as I'm going around here. So I said I cut off about an inch, restart. I'm just above that nipple. So we're gonna come around, and then we're gonna start, and we're gonna go this way. The tighter you could pull that, the easier this cuts. There we go. Right above that nipple. Like I said, I literally just cut like through the edge of that nipple, and then back down. And I'm just basically pulling down and slicing just a little, and I want to cut right on that side of that pin. Okay, so there's that belly. I'll throw that in my scrap pail. And there you go. You have a nice, beautiful inspection window. They can see all the nice under fur there, and they can see the back hair. For the lip up here, I usually take and I start probably about where you think the crease of the mouse would be. I get my finger in there, and I basically cut down. I want to cut all this kind of meaty stuff off, so I kind of cut straight down on the side, and then I'm cutting around basically just under what I didn't flesh there. Come around to this side and then out, and you can see it leaves like a nice oval hole on the head end there, and that should dry just fine. Again, we'll throw that in the scrap pail. And then the front legs, you don't want to cut like way down here, because your leg hole will be that big around. You don't want to cut like right here. I usually I kind of pull it tight, and I would say maybe 2 inches up, and then I pinch it with my hand. What that does is allows me to kind of start and get it cutting. And then I'm putting pressure down on my board so it doesn't slide, and then basically cut through. So there's one leg hole. Toss the leg, and then we'll show you on this side. So I kind of pull up, pinch like 2 inches up, and then kind of pull this way, and there we go. There's the second leg hole. All right, and the last most important part of this is your belly board. I have a few different lengths of these and that are kind of tapered at different tapers. Kind of depends on, like, if I get a big raccoon, the belly will literally be this much farther. Well, this belly board wouldn't be long enough. So I have a few different lengths of them for different size animals. So what I like to do is I put my belly board in flat like this, all the way in, and then I tip it up. So I kind of just grab the lip of the fur there, pull up, and I'm basically running it like this up there, so this end doesn't catch on the hide. So I'll push it all the way through until it pokes out that end, and then we'll grab both ends and tip it up. And you can see how that kind of pulls it out away from the board there, and out away from the board there. And there we go. That is a completed raccoon. I usually, well, see right here, I knocked one out. That's just from laying it on the back. There we go. So the tail is all pinned. We're still good there. What I do is I have a hole in the bottom of my board right here. It's like a 3/8 hole. I hang my raccoon upside down like that. In my basement of my house, in the rafters, I just have rows of nails pounded in the rafter, and I just hang it, and then I just put a paper towel on the floor right below the nose, because the grease will drip off of these. After about a day or so, I will take that guy and I'll wipe him down with a rag. So I'll wipe that guy down with a rag, and what that does is just kind of wipes all the grease off of him, and that does kind of keep him from dripping on the floor. I do have that rag there kind of as a backup. Alright guys, so I got this raccoon that I showed you skinning and fleshing. I got him boarded. I'm going to show you how I take him off, and then how I just kind of finish him up for getting him ready to sell. Basically all I do, he's been on the stretcher, he's been on there about a week or so, but typically if I'm working down here 3 or 4 days, they're dry. Basically I just grab like the nose and like the ears here is the thickest spots. So I just kind of make sure that they're kind of dry and hard, which this guy is plenty. I just use, after about 3 days, I actually just I used blue shop towels and then just kind of wipe them off. They weren't super greasy, but I just basically wipe any of the excess grease off, up and down the tail. And then I'll do it on the belly side here as well. Just make sure that he's grease free. I hang up my fur nose down, so then the grease always tends to run towards the nose, so usually the nose is kind of greasy, so I'll make sure I get that wiped off. And then this is a plywood stretcher. I have some that are just pine stretchers too, but the pins push in hard sometimes. I use a hammer to tap them in. So what I end up doing is I just take a pliers and I actually grab it in my hand like this, so I can run the pliers like that. And then I just have a peanut butter jar. I've used like an empty shotgun shell box too, works good. Just something to throw them in. So all I do is I just grab one and pull, and sometimes you gotta twist. Seeing like the plywood bends my pins once in a while. So I just take my pliers and straighten it right back out, and it's ready for use again. And I just go right down the line. So I'm just pinching, and then I just open my hand and it falls out of the pliers. It saves, and when you're doing a lot of them, if I'm doing like, you know, sometimes I'm doing 12 or 14 raccoons all in a day. By using a pliers really saves on my fingers trying to get the pins in and out of these things. So that one, it just fell out and I just stuck it in there. And I tend to work from like the butt towards the tail, because these hold it from flapping, and then so it's not moving around. It keeps the hide kind of pushed tight to the board as I go. So again, it doesn't take me no time. I'm checking every one. Once in a while the stem will pull off of the head, or the head will pull off the stem. So I just want to make sure I don't leave one stuck in there, because then you're not going to be able to pull it out or pull the hide off. All right, so flip over to the belly. I pin 4 spots on the legs, two spots on each leg, and then I got my belly board. So we're gonna just pop these 4 out. See that one there? You can see it broke the head off. So what I do is I just grab the stem and then I'll throw that one away. All right, now I'm to the belly board. A lot of times what I'll do is I actually got a hammer. And I usually just kind of start it with the hammer, just kind of tapping it down. This one wasn't super tight, but some of them dry really tight. And then just grab and pull. Once in a while you end up using the pliers and gripping onto it and then pull it out. So there's your belly board. To get the fur off there, I like to kind of push, you can kind of see how it leaves kind of a gap where the belly board is there. I like to kind of squeeze that and kind of roll it around in my hand, and it kind of seems like it breaks it loose from the edges of the board, and especially up here around the nose. I'm afraid this one's actually dried, kind of curled around the board, but we'll see. So now I'm just holding the board, and I'm just going to grab and try to lightly slide, and you can kind of see his nose is pulling off there. And there we go. We'll set my board to the side here. All right, so there's my raccoon. What all you do is I'll grab them by the nose, kind of like that. And then I just give them a shake. Turn you guys so you can see what I'm doing. So just kind of give them a shake, and what that does is it kind of fluffs them up a little bit from being on the board. You can see how fluffy he is. All right, we'll lower you guys down just a little. So the last thing I do to get my fur ready to sell is I take a comb, and this is just a dog comb with kind of fairly aggressive teeth on it. I just open up the leg, this is the leg on the belly side, and then I'll just take my comb and I just kind of comb out this area that the fur buyer can actually see. Get any of the dirt and debris and any loose hair out of there. Kind of hold that side open, if you can see what I'm doing. So I'm just holding the leg open and then combing in there. Kind of like I said, because it all kind of gets matted from being on the board. And then I kind of stick my comb up in the belly a little ways and just kind of comb it down. And then I'm kind of just combing down the tail. You can see, I got a little bit of fur out of there, which happens every time. And then, like I said, I'm just going to give him one more kind of good fluff. And you can see, he's got kind of a little, well, it's just the way the fur was laying, I guess. But, it doesn't look like too bad of a coon for a young of the year raccoon. All right, I think that's it. So that raccoon now is ready to sell. I don't do anything else with them. Basically, I just throw them in a fur bag and wait for the fur buyer. I actually got a couple more over here already hanging. So yeah, I'll just throw them in a fur bag until I'm ready to take them to the fur buyer or ship them to the auction, whichever you prefer. Otherwise, I just want to thank you guys for watching this episode of Schmattz Outdoors. Stay tuned. There'll be some other put up videos of other species, some equipment videos, stuff like that coming up in the future. Otherwise, I thank you guys for watching. We'll see you on the next video.